Meditations, the first book. I, of my grandfather Verus, I have learned to be gentle and meek, and to refrain from all anger and passion. From the fame and memory of him that begot me, I have learned both shamefastness and manlike behavior. Of my mother I have learned to be religious and bountiful, and to forbear not only to do, but to intend any evil, to content myself with a spare diet, and to fly all such excess as is incidental to great wealth. Of my great-grandfather, both to frequent public schools and auditories, and to get me good and able teachers at home, and that I ought not to think much, if, upon such occasions, I were at excessive charges. Paul. 2. Of him that brought me up, not to be fondly addicted to either of the two great factions of the coursers in the circus, called Prasini and Veneti, nor in the amphitheatre partially to favor any of the gladiators or fencers, as either the Parmularii or the Secutors. Moreover, to endure labor, nor to need many things, when I have anything to do it myself rather than by others, not to meddle with many businesses, and not easily to admit of any slander. Chapter 1. Remember how long thou hast already put off these things, and how, often a certain day and hour, as it were, having been set unto thee by the gods, thou hast neglected it. It is high time for thee to understand the true nature both of the world, whereof thou art a part, and of that Lord and Governor of the world, from whom, as a channel from the spring, thou thyself didst flow, and that there is but a certain limit of time appointed unto thee, which if thou shalt not make use of to calm and allay the many distempers of thy soul, it will pass away, and thou with it, and never after return. Or, 2. Let it be thy earnest and incessant care as a Roman and a man to perform whatsoever it is that thou art about, with true and unfeigned gravity, natural affection, freedom, and justice. And as for all other cares and imaginations, how thou mayest ease thy mind of them. Which thou shalt do, if thou shalt go about every action as thy last action, free from all vanity, all passionate and wilful aberration from reason, and from all hypocrisy, and self-love and dislike of those things, which by the fates or appointment of God have happened unto thee. Thou seest that those things which for a man to hold on in a prosperous course, and to live a divine life, are requisite and necessary, are not many, for the gods will require no more of any man, that shall but keep and observe these things. Tie 3. Do, soul, do abuse and contemn thyself, yet a while, and the time for thee to respect thyself will be at an end. Every man's happiness depends from himself. But behold, thy life is almost at an end, whiles affording thyself no respect, thou dost make thy happiness to consist in the souls and conceits of other men. Than a covetous man his silver, and vainglorious man applause? These, to whatsoever they take an affection, can be content to want their meat and sleep, to further that every one which he affects, and shall actions tending to the common good of human society, seem more vile unto thee, or worthy of less respect and intention. 2. How easy a thing is it for a man to put off from him all turbulent adventitious imaginations, and presently to be in perfect rest and tranquillity. 3. Think thyself fit and worthy to speak, or to do anything that is according to nature, and let not the reproach or report of some that may ensue upon it ever deter thee. If it be right and honest to be spoken or done, undervalue not thyself so much as to be discouraged from it. As for them, they have their own rational overruling part, and their own proper inclination, which thou must not stand and look about to take notice of, but go on straight, whither both thine own particular and the common nature do lead thee, and the way of both these is but one. Chapter 2. This also thou must observe, that whatsoever it is that, naturally, doth happen to things natural, hath somewhat in itself that is pleasing and delightful, as a great loaf when it is baked. Some parts of it cleave, as it were, and part asunder, and make the crust of it rugged and unequal. And yet those parts of it, though in some sort it be against the art and intention of baking itself, that they are thus cleft and parted, which should have been and were first made all even and uniform, they become it well nevertheless, and have a certain peculiar property, to stir the appetite. So figs are accounted fairest and ripest then when they begin to shrink and wither, as it were. So ripe olives, when they are next to putrefaction, then are they in their proper beauty. The hanging down of grapes, the brow of a lion, the froth of a foaming wild boar, and many other like things, though by themselves considered they are far from any beauty, yet because they happen naturally, they both are comely and delightful, so that if a man shall, with a profound mind and apprehension, consider all things in the world, even among all those things which are but mere accessories and natural appendices, as it were, there will scarce appear anything unto him wherein he will not find matter of pleasure and delight. So will he behold with as much pleasure the true rictus of wild beasts, as those which by skilful painters and other artificers are imitated. So will he be able to perceive the proper ripeness and beauty of old age, whether in man or woman, and whatsoever else it is that is beautiful and alluring, and whatsoever is, with chaste and continent eyes he will soon find out and discern. Those and many other things will he discern, not credible unto everyone, but unto them only who are truly and familiarly acquainted, both with nature itself and all natural things. Vide. How come it to pass that the gods, having ordered all other things so well and so lovingly, should be overseen in this one only thing, that whereas then hath been some very good men that have made many covenants, as it were, with God, and by many holy actions and outward services contracted a kind of familiarity with him, that these men, when once they are dead, should never be restored to life, but be extinct forever? But this thou mayest be sure of, that this, if it be so indeed, would never have been so ordered by the gods, had it been fit otherwise. For certainly it was possible, had it been more just so, and had it been according to nature, the nature of the universe would easily have borne it. But now, because it is not so, if so be that it be not so indeed, be therefore confident that it was not fit it should be so, for thou seest thyself, that now seeking after this matter, how freely thou doest argue and contest with God. But were not the gods both just and good in the highest degree, thou durst not thus reason with them. Now if just and good, it could not be that in the creation of the world they should either unjustly or unreasonably oversee anything. Chapter 3. Of Diognetus, not to busy myself about vain things, and not easily to believe those things which are commonly spoken by such as take upon them to work wonders, and by sorcerers or prestidigitators and impostors, concerning the power of charms, and their driving out of demons or evil spirits, and the like. Not to keep quails for the game, nor to be mad after such things, not to be offended with other men's liberty of speech, and to apply myself unto philosophy. Him also I must thank that ever I heard first Bacchius, then Tandasis and Marcianus, and that I did write dialogues in my youth, and that I took liking to the philosophers' little couch and skins and such other things, which by the Grecian discipline are proper to those who profess philosophy. Can it be at the wickedness of men, when thou dost call to mind this conclusion, that all reasonable creatures are made one for another, and that it is part of justice to bear with them, and that it is against their wills that they offend? And how many already, who once likewise prosecuted their enmities, suspected, hated, and fiercely contended, are now long ago stretched out and reduced unto ashes? It is time for thee to make an end. As for those things which among the common chances of the world happen unto thee as thy particular lot and portion, Canst thou be displeased with any of them, when thou dost call that our ordinary dilemma to mind, either a Providence or Democritus, is atoms, and with it whatsoever we brought to prove that the whole world is as it were one city? And as for thy body, what canst thou fear, if thou dost consider that thy mind and understanding, when once it hath recollected itself, and knows its own power, hath in this life and breath, whether it runs smoothly and gently, or whether harshly and rudely, no interest at all, but is altogether indifferent, and whatsoever else thou hast heard and assented unto concerning either pain or pleasure? But the care of thine honor and reputation will perchance distract thee? How can that be, if thou dost look back, and consider both how quickly all things that are forgotten, and what an immense chaos of eternity was before, and will follow after all things, and the vanity of praise, and the inconstancy and variableness of human judgments and opinions, and the narrowness of the place, wherein it is limited and circumscribed? For the whole earth is but as one point, and of it this inhabited part of it is but a very little part, and of this part how many in number, and what manner of men are they that will commend thee? What remains then but that thou often put in practice this kind of retiring of thyself to this little part of thyself, and above all things keep thyself from distraction, and intend not anything vehemently, but be free, and consider all things as a man whose proper object is virtue, as a man whose true nature is to be kind and sociable, as a citizen, as a mortal creature. Among other things, which to consider and look into thou must use to withdraw thyself, let those two be among the most obvious and at hand. 1. That the things or objects themselves reach not unto the soul, but stand without, still and quiet, and that it is from the opinion only which is within, that all the tumult and all the trouble doth proceed. The next, that all these things, which now thou seest, shall within a very little while be changed and be no more, and ever call to mind how many changes and alterations in the world thou thyself hast already been an eye-witness of in thy time. This world is mere change, and this life opinion. IV. If to understand and to be reasonable be common unto all men, then is that reason for which we are termed reasonable common unto all. If reason is general, then is that reason also which prescribeth what is to be done and what not common unto all. If that, then law. If law, then are we fellow citizens. If so, then are we partners in some one commonweal. If so, then the world is as it were a city. For which other commonweal is it that all men can be said to be members of? From this common city it is that understanding, reason, and law is derived unto us, for from whence else? For as that which in me is earthly I have from some common earth, and that which is moist from some other element is imparted, as my breath and life hath its proper fountain, and that likewise which is dry and fiery in me, for there is nothing which doth not proceed from something, as also there is nothing that can be reduced unto mere nothing, so also is there some common beginning from whence my understanding hath proceeded. Chapter 4. To Rusticus I am beholding, that I first entered into the conceit, that my life wanted some redress and cure, and then that I did not fall into the ambition of ordinary sophists, either to write tracts concerning the common theorems, or to exhort men unto virtue and the study of philosophy by public orations, as also that I never by way of ostentation did affect to show myself an active, able man for any kind of bodily exercises, and that I gave over the study of rhetoric and poetry, and of elegant, neat language, that I did not use to walk about the house in my long robe, nor to do any such things, Moreover, I learned of him to write letters without any affectation or curiosity, such as that was, which by him was written to my mother from Sinuessa, and to be easy and ready to be reconciled, and well pleased again with them that had offended me, as soon as any of them would be content to seek unto me again. To read with diligence, not to rest satisfied with a light and superficial knowledge, nor quickly to assent to things commonly spoken of, whom also I must thank that ever I lighted upon Epictetus his Hippomnemata, or moral commentaries and common factions, which also he gave me of his own. One who not often, nor without some great necessity tending to some public good, mindeth what any other either speaks or doth or purposeth, for those things only that are in his own power, or that are truly his own, are the objects of his employments, and his thoughts are ever taken up with those things, which of the whole universe are by the fates or providence destinated and appropriated unto himself. Those things that are his own, and in his own power, he himself takes order, for that they be good, and as for those that happen unto him, he believes them to be so. For that lot and portion which is assigned to every one, as it is unavoidable and necessary, so is it always profitable. He remembers besides that whatsoever partakes of reason is akin unto him, and that to care for all men generally is agreeing to the nature of a man. But as for honor and praise, that they ought not generally to be admitted and accepted of from all, but from such only who live according to nature. As for them that do not, what manner of men they be at home or abroad, day or night, how conditioned themselves with what manner of conditions, or with men of what conditions they moil and pass away the time together, he knoweth, and remembers right well. He therefore regards not such praise and approbation as proceeding from them who cannot like and approve themselves. Nay, but will some reply, perchance this very thing a rational man is bound unto, to understand what it is that he doeth. For it is the property, say they, of one that is naturally sociable, to be sensible that he doth operate sociably, nay, and to desire that the party himself that is sociably dealt with should be sensible of it too. I answer, that which thou sayest is true indeed, but the true meaning of that which is said thou dost not understand, and therefore art thou one of those first whom I mentioned. For they also are led by a probable appearance of reason. But if thou dost desire to understand truly what it is that is said, fear not that thou shalt therefore give over any sociable action. 7. The form of the Athenians' prayer did run thus: O rain, rain, good Jupiter, upon all the grounds and fields that belong to the Athenians. Either we should not pray at all, or thus absolutely and freely, and not every one for himself in particular alone. Chapter 5. From Apollonius, true liberty and unvariable steadfastness, and not to regard anything at all, though never so little, but right and reason, and always, whether in the sharpest pains, or after the loss of a child, or in long diseases, to be still the same man, who also was a present and visible example unto me, that it was possible for the same man to be both vehement and remiss, a man not subject to be vexed and offended with the incapacity of his scholars and auditors in his lectures and expositions, and a true pattern of a man who of all his good gifts and faculties least esteemed in himself, that his excellent skill and ability to teach and persuade others the common theory. Of him also I learned how to receive favors and kindnesses, as commonly they are accounted, from friends, so that I might not become obnoxious unto them, for them, nor more yielding upon occasion than in right I ought, and yet so that I should not pass them neither, as an unsensible and unthankful man. Chapter 6. Of Sextus, mildness, and the pattern of a family governed with paternal affection, and a purpose to live according to nature, to be grave without affectation, to observe carefully the several dispositions of my friends, not to be offended with idiots, nor unseasonably to set upon those that are carried with the vulgar opinions, with the theorems and tenets of philosophers, his conversation being an example, how a man might accommodate himself to all men and companies, so that though his company were sweeter and more pleasing than any flatterer's cogging and fawning, yet was it at the same time most respected and reverenced, who also had a proper happiness and faculty, rationally a man without ever the least appearance of anger or any other passion, able at the same time most exactly to observe the Stoic apatheia or unpassionateness, and yet to be most tender-hearted, ever of good credit, and yet almost without any noise or rumor, very learned, and yet making little show. There is one common reason and one common truth that belongs unto all reasonable creatures, for neither is there save one perfection of all creatures that are of the same kind, and partakers of the same reason. These things once so fixed and concluded, as thou wouldst think him a happy citizen, whose constant study and practice were for the good and benefit of his fellow citizens, and the carriage of the city such towards him that he were well pleased with it, so must it needs be with thee, that thou shalt live a happy life. Chapter 7. From Alexander the Grammarian, to be unreprovable myself, and not reproachfully to reprehend any man for a barbarism or a solecism or any false pronunciation, but dexterously by way of answer or testimony or confirmation of the same matter, taking no notice of the word to utter it as it should have been spoken, or by some other such close and indirect admonition, handsomely and civilly to tell him of it. 8th. Of Fronto, to how much envy and fraud and hypocrisy the state of a tyrannous king is subject unto, and how they who are commonly called Nijiyan, i.e. nobly born, are in some sort incapable or void of natural affection. For indeed this latter may seem first to have been wronged, and so in some manner through grief thereof to have been forced to be angry, whereas he who through lust doth commit anything, did of himself merely resolve upon that action. For it is not lawful that anything that is of another and inferior kind and nature, be it what it will, as either popular applause, or honor, or riches, or pleasures, should be suffered to confront and contest, as it were, with that which is rational and operatively good. For all these things, if once though, but for a while they begin to please, they presently prevail and pervert a man's mind, or turn a man from the right way. Do thou therefore, I say, absolutely and freely make choice of that which is best, and stick unto it. Now, that they say is best, which is most profitable, if they mean profitable to man as he is a rational man, stand thou to it and maintain it. But if they mean profitable as he is a creature, only reject it, and from this thy tenet and conclusion keep off carefully all plausible shows and colors of external appearance, that thou mayest be able to discern things rightly. Among them alone, of all other things that are of one kind, there is not to be found a general disposition to flow together. But though they fly from nature, yet are they stopped in their course, and apprehended. Do they what they can, nature doth prevail, and so shalt thou confess if thou dost observe it. For sooner mayst thou find a thing earthly where no earthly thing is, than find a man that naturally can live by himself alone. That, therefore, which thou hast since received, not that which came from thy mother, is that which comes to change and corruption. But suppose that for the general substance, and more solid part of it, should still cleave unto thee never so close, yet what is that to the proper qualities and affections of it, by which persons are distinguished, which certainly are quite different? Chapter 8. Whatsoever thou dost affect, whatsoever thou dost project, so do. And so project all, as one who, for aught thou knowest, may at this very present depart out of this life. And as for death, if there be any gods, it is no grievous thing to leave the society of men. The gods will do thee no hurt, thou mayest be sure. But if it be so that there be no gods, or that they take no care of the world, why should I desire to live in a world void of gods and of all divine providence? But gods there be certainly, and they take care for the world, and as for those things which be truly evil, as vice and wickedness, such things they have put in a man's own power, that he might avoid them if he would. And had there been anything besides that had been truly bad and evil, they would have had a care of that also, that a man might have avoided it. But why should that be thought to hurt and prejudice a man's life in this world, which cannot anyways make man himself the better or the worse in his own person? Neither must we think that the nature of the universe did either through ignorance pass these things, or if not as ignorant of them, yet as unable either to prevent or better to order and dispose them. It cannot be that she, through want either of power or skill, should have committed such a thing, so as to suffer all things, both good and bad, equally and promiscuously to happen unto all, both good and bad. As for life, therefore, and death, honor and dishonor, labor and pleasure, riches and poverty, all these things happen unto men indeed, both good and bad, equally, but as things which of themselves are neither good nor bad, because of themselves, neither shameful nor praiseworthy. For this whatsoever it be should not have been produced, had it not conduced to the good of the universe. For neither doth any ordinary particular nature bring anything to pass, that is not to whatsoever is within the sphere of its own proper administration and government, agreeable and subordinate. For these two considerations, then, thou must be well pleased with anything that doth happen unto thee. Thee it was prescribed, and that from the very beginning, by the series and connection of the first causes, it hath ever had a reference unto thee. And secondly, because the good success and perfect welfare, and indeed the very continuance of him, that is the administrator of the whole, doth in a manner depend on it. For the whole, because whole, therefore entire and perfect, is maimed and mutilated, if thou shalt cut off anything at all, whereby the coherence and contiguity as of parts, so of causes, is maintained and preserved. Of which certain it is that thou doest as much as lieth in thee cut off, and in some sort violently take somewhat away, as often as thou art displeased with anything that happeneth. Chapter 9. Of Alexander the Platonic, not often, nor without great necessity to say, or to write to any man in a letter, I am not at leisure, nor in this manner still to put off those duties, which we owe to our friends and acquaintances, to every one in his kind, under pretence of urgent affairs. It is the part of a man endowed with a good understanding faculty to consider what they themselves are in very deed, from whose bare conceits and voices honor and credit do proceed, as also what it is to die, and how if a man shall consider this by itself alone to die, and separate from it in his mind all those things which with it usually represent themselves unto us, he can conceive of it no otherwise than as of a work of nature, and he that fears any work of nature is a very child. Now death, it is not only a work of nature, but also conducing to nature. XI. Consider with thyself how man, and by what part of his, is joined unto God, and how that part of man is affected, when it is said to be diffused. There is nothing more wretched than that soul, which in a kind of circuit compasseth all things, searching, as he saith, even the very depths of the earth, and by all signs and conjectures prying into the very thoughts of other men's souls, and yet of this is not sensible, that it is sufficient for a man to apply himself wholly, and to confine all his thoughts and cares to the tendance of that spirit which is within him, and truly and really to serve him. His service doth consist in this, that a man keep himself pure from all violent passion and evil affection, from all rashness and vanity, and from all manner of discontent, either in regard of the gods or men. For indeed whatsoever proceeds from the gods deserves respect for their worth and excellency, and whatsoever proceeds from men, as they are our kinsmen, should by us be entertained with love, always, sometimes as proceeding from their ignorance of that which is truly good and bad, a blindness no less than that by which we are not able to discern between white and black, with a kind of pity and compassion also. From the nature of things pass now unto their subjects and matter. How temporary, how vile are they, such as may be in the power and possession of some abominable loose liver, of some common strumpet, of some notorious oppressor and extortioner. Pass from thence to the dispositions of them that thou doest ordinarily converse with. How hardly do we bear, even with the most loving and amiable, that I may not say how hard it is for us to bear even with our own selves in such obscurity and impurity of things, in such and so continual a flux both of the substances and time, both of the motions themselves, and things moved, what it is that we can fasten upon, either to honor and respect especially, or seriously and studiously to seek after, I cannot so much as conceive, for indeed they are things contrary. Chapter 10. Of Catullus, not to contemn any friend's expostulation, though unjust, but to strive to reduce him to his former disposition, freely and heartily to speak well of all my masters upon any occasion, as it is reported of Domitius and Athenodotus, and to love my children with true affection. XI. From my brother Severus, to be kind and loving to all them of my house and family, by whom also I came to the knowledge of Thrasea and Helvidius, and Cato, and Dio, and Brutus. He it was also that did put me in the first conceit and desire of an equal commonwealth, administered by justice and equality, and of a kingdom wherein should be regarded nothing more than the good and welfare of the subjects. Of him also to observe a constant tenor, not interrupted with any other cares and distractions, in the study and esteem of philosophy, to be bountiful and liberal in the largest measure, always to hope the best, and to be confident that my friends love me, in whom I moreover observed open dealing towards those whom he reproved at any time, and that his friends might without all doubt or much observation know what he would or would not, so open and plain was he. Chapter 11. To these ever-present helps and mementos, let one more be added, ever to make a particular description and delineation, as it were, of every object that presents itself to thy mind, that thou mayest wholly and throughly contemplate it in its own proper nature, bare and naked, wholly and severally divided into its several parts and quarters, and then by thyself in thy mind to call both it and those things of which it doth consist, and in which it shall be resolved, by their own proper true names and appellations. For there is nothing so effectual to beget true magnanimity, as to be able truly and methodically to examine and consider all things that happen in this life, and so to penetrate into their natures, that at the same time this also may concur in our apprehensions, what is the true use of it, and what is the true nature of this universe to which it is useful. How much in regard of the universe may it be esteemed? How much in regard of man, a citizen of the supreme city, of which all other cities in the world are, as it were, but houses and families? 12. What is this that now my fancy is set upon? Of what things doth it consist? How long can it last? Which of all the virtues is the proper virtue for this present use? As whether meekness, fortitude, truth, faith, sincerity, contentation, or any of the rest. Of everything, therefore, thou must use thyself to say, this immediately comes from God, this by that fatal connection and concatenation of things, or, which almost comes to one, by some coincidental casualty, And as for this, it proceeds from my neighbor, my kinsman, my fellow, through his ignorance indeed, because he knows not what is truly natural unto him, but I know it, and therefore carry myself towards him according to the natural law of fellowship, that is kindly and justly. As for those things that of themselves are altogether indifferent, as in my best judgment I conceive everything to deserve more or less, so I carry myself towards it. Chapter 12. From Claudius Maximus, in all things to endeavor to have power. Of myself, and in nothing to be carried about, to be cheerful and courageous in all sudden chances and accidents, as in sicknesses, to love mildness and moderation and gravity, and to do my business, whatsoever it be, thoroughly and without querulousness. Whatsoever he said, all men believed him, that as he spake, so he thought, and whatsoever he did, that he did it with a good intent. His manner was, never to wonder at anything, never to be in haste, and yet never slow, nor to be perplexed or dejected, or at any time unseemly or excessively to laugh, nor to be angry or suspicious, but ever ready to do good, and to forgive, and to speak truth, and all this as one that seemed rather of himself to have been straight and right, than ever to have been rectified or redressed. Neither was there any man that ever thought himself undervalued by him, or that could find in his heart to think himself a better man than he. He would also be very pleasant and gracious. First, that all things in the world from all eternity, by a perpetual revolution of the same times and things ever continued and renewed, are of one kind and nature, so that whether for 100 or 200 years only, or for an infinite space of time, a man see those things which are still the same, it can be no matter of great moment. And secondly, that life which any the longest liver or the shortest liver parts with, is for length and duration the very same, for that only which is present is that which either of them can lose, as being that only which they have, for that which he hath not, no man can truly be said to lose. Chapter 13. In my Father I observed his meekness, his constancy without, wavering in those things which after a due examination and deliberation he had determined. How free from all vanity he carried himself in matter of honor and dignity as they are esteemed, his laboriousness and assiduity, his readiness to hear any man, that had aught to say tending to any common good, how generally and impartially he would give every man his due, his skill and knowledge, when rigor or extremity, or when remissness or moderation was in season, how he did abstain from all unchaste love of youths, his moderate condescending to other men's occasions as an ordinary man, neither absolutely requiring of his friends that they should wait upon him at his ordinary meals, nor that they should of necessity accompany him in his journeys, and his accurate examination of things in consultations, and patient hearing of others. He would not hastily give over the search of the matter as one easy to be satisfied with sudden notions and apprehensions. His care to preserve his friends, how neither at any time he would carry himself towards them with disdainful neglect, and grow weary of them, nor yet at any time be madly fond of them. His contented mind in all things, his cheerful countenance, his care to foresee things afar off, and to take order for the least, without any noise or clamor. Moreover, how all acclamations and flattery were repressed by him. How carefully he observed all things necessary to the government, and kept an account of the common expenses, and how patiently he did abide that he was reprehended by some for this, his strict and rigid kind of dealing. How he was neither a superstitious worshipper of the gods, nor an ambitious pleaser of men, or studious of popular applause, but sober in all things, and everywhere observant of that which was fitting, no affecter of novelties. In those things which conduced to his ease and convenience, plenty whereof his fortune did afford him, without pride and bragging, yet with all freedom and liberty, so that as he did freely enjoy them without any anxiety or affectation when they were present, so, when absent, he found no want of them. Moreover, that he was never commended by any man as either a learned acute man or an obsequious officious man or a fine orator, but as a ripe mature man, a perfect sound man, one that could not endure to be flattered, able to govern both himself and others. Moreover, how much he did honor all true philosophers, without upbraiding those that were not so. His sociableness, his gracious and delightful conversation, but never unto satiety, his care of his body within bounds and measure, not as one that desired to live long, or over-studious of neatness and elegancy, and yet not as one that did not regard it, so that through his own care and providence he seldom needed any inward physic or outward applications, but especially how ingeniously he would yield to any that had obtained any peculiar faculty, as either eloquence or the knowledge of the laws or of ancient customs or the like, and how he concurred with them in his best care, and again how he was not easily moved and tossed up and down, but loved to be constant, both in the same places and businesses, and how after his great fits of headache he would return fresh and vigorous to his wonted affairs. Again, that secrets he neither had many nor often, and such only as concerned public matters, his discretion and moderation in exhibiting of the public sights and shows for the pleasure and pastime of the people in public buildings, congeries, and the like. In all these things, having a respect unto men only as men, and to the equity of the things themselves, and not unto the glory that might follow. Never wont to use the baths at unseasonable hours, no builder, never curious or solicitous either about his meat, or about the workmanship or color of his clothes, or about anything that belonged to external beauty. In all his conversation, far from all inhumanity, all boldness and incivility, all greediness and impetuosity, never doing anything with such earnestness and intention that a man could say of him that he did sweat about it, but contrariwise, all things distinctly, as at leisure, without trouble, orderly, soundly, and agreeably. A man might have applied that to him, which is recorded of Socrates, that he knew how to want and to enjoy those things, in the want whereof most men show themselves weak, and in the fruition intemperate, but to hold out firm and constant, and to keep within the compass of true moderation and sobriety in either estate, is proper to a man who hath a perfect and invincible soul, such as he showed himself in the sickness of Maximus. Chapter 14. From the gods I received that I had good grandfathers and parents, a good sister, good masters, good domestics, loving kinsmen, almost all that I have, and that I never through haste and rashness transgressed against any of them, notwithstanding that my disposition was such as that such a thing, if occasion had been, might very well have been committed by me, but that it was the mercy of the gods to prevent such a concurring of matters and occasions as might make me to incur this blame. That I was not long brought up by the concubine of my father, that I preserved the flower of my youth, that I took not upon me to be a man before my time, but rather put it off longer than I needed, that I lived under the government of my lord and father, who would take away from me all pride and vainglory, and reduce me to that conceit and opinion that it was not impossible for a prince to live in the court without a troop of guards and followers, extraordinary apparel, such and such torches and statues, and other like particulars of state and magnificence, but that a man may reduce and contract himself almost to the state of a private man, and yet for all that not to become the more base and remiss in those public matters and affairs wherein power and authority is requisite. That I have had such a brother, who by his own example might stir me up to think of myself, and by his respect and love delight and please me. That I have got ingenuous children, and that they were not born distorted, nor with any other natural deformity. That I was no great proficient in the study of rhetoric and poetry, and of other faculties, which perchance I might have dwelt upon, if I had found myself to go on in them with success. that I did by times prefer those by whom I was brought up to such places and dignities which they seemed unto me most to desire, and that I did not put them off with hope and expectation that, since that they were yet but young, I would do the same hereafter, that I ever knew Apollonius and Rusticus and Maximus, that I have had occasion often and effectually to consider and meditate with myself concerning that life which is according to nature, what the nature and manner of it is, so that, as for the gods and such suggestions, helps, and inspirations as might be expected from them, nothing did hinder, but that I might have begun long before to live according to nature, or that even now that I was not yet partaker and in present possession of that life, that I myself, in that I did not observe those inward motions and suggestions, yea, and almost plain and apparent instructions and admonitions of the gods, was the only cause of it, that my body in such a life hath been able to hold out so long, that I never had to do with Benedicta and Theodotus, yea, and afterwards when I fell into some fits of love, I was soon cured. That having been often displeased with Rusticus, I never did him anything for which afterwards I had occasion to repent. That it being so that my mother was to die young, yet she lived with me all her latter years. That as often as I had a purpose to help and succor any that either were poor or fallen into some present necessity, I never was answered by my officers that there was not ready money enough to do it, and that I myself never had occasion to require the like succor from any other. That I have such a wife, so obedient, so loving, so ingenuous, that I had choice of fit and able men to whom I might commit the bringing up of my children, that by dreams I have received help, as for other things, so in particular how I might stay my casting of blood, and cure my dizziness, as that also that happened to thee in Cajeta, as unto Chryses when he prayed by the seashore. And when I did first apply myself to philosophy, that I did not fall into the hands of some sophists, or spent my time either in reading the manifold volumes of ordinary philosophers, nor in practicing myself in the solution of arguments and fallacies, nor dwelt upon the studies of the meteors and other natural curiosities. All these things without the assistance of the gods and fortune could not have been. XV. In the country of the Quadi et Granua, these betimes in the morning say to thyself, this day I shall have to do with an idle, curious man, with an unthankful man, a railer, a crafty, false, or an envious man, an unsociable, uncharitable man. All these ill qualities have happened unto them through ignorance of that which is truly good and truly bad. But I, that understand the nature of that which is good, that it only is to be desired, and of that which is bad, that it only is truly odious and shameful, who know, moreover, that this transgressor, whosoever he be, is my kinsman, not by the same blood and seed, but by participation of the same reason and of the same divine particle. How can I either be hurt by any of those, since it is not in their power to make me incur anything that is truly reproachful? Or angry and ill affected towards him, who by nature is so near unto me? For we are all born to be fellow workers, as the feet, the hands, and the eyelids, as the rows of the upper and under teeth. For such therefore to be in opposition is against nature. And what is it to chafe at and to be averse from, but to be in opposition? Chapter 15. Be not deceived, for thou shalt never live to read thy moral. Commentaries, nor the acts of the famous Romans and Grecians, nor those excerpta from several books, all which thou hadst provided and laid up for thyself against thine old age. Hasten therefore to an end, and giving over all vain hopes, help thyself in time if thou carest for thyself, as thou oughtest to do. Spint. To steal, to sow, to buy, to be at rest, to see what is to be done, which is not seen by the eyes, but by another kind of sight, what these words mean, and how many ways to be understood they do not understand. The body, the soul, the understanding. As the senses naturally belong to the body, and the desires and affections to the soul, so do the dogmata to the understanding. Wherein the end of everything doth consist, therein also doth his good and benefit consist. Society, therefore, is the proper good of a rational creature. For that we are made for society, it hath long since been demonstrated. Or can any man make any question of this, that whatsoever is naturally worse and inferior is ordinarily subordinated to that which is better? And that those things that are best are made one for another, and those things that have souls are better than those that have none, and of those that have, those best that have rational souls. 16. To desire things impossible is the part of a madman, but it is a thing impossible that wicked man should not commit some such things. Neither doth anything happen to any man which in the ordinary course of nature as natural unto him doth not happen. Again, the same things happen unto others also. And truly, if either he that is ignorant that such a thing hath happened unto him, or he that is ambitious to be commended for his magnanimity, can be patient, and is not grieved, is it not a grievous thing, that either ignorance or a vain desire to please and to be commended should be more powerful and effectual than true prudence? As for the things themselves, they touch not the soul, neither can they have any access unto it, neither can they of themselves any ways either affect it or move it. For she herself alone can affect and move herself, and according as the dogmata and opinions are, which she doth vouchsafe herself, so are those things which as accessories have any coexistence with her. Chapter 16. Whatsoever I am is either flesh or life, or that which we commonly call the mistress and overruling part of man, reason. Away with thy books, suffer not thy mind any more to be distracted, and carried to and fro, for it will not be, but as even now ready to die. Think little of thy flesh, blood, bones, and a skin, a pretty piece of knit and twisted work, consisting of nerves, veins, and arteries. Think no more of it than so. And as for thy life, consider what it is, a wind, not one constant wind neither, but every moment of an hour let out and sucked in again. The third is thy ruling part, and here consider, thou art an old man. Suffer not that excellent part to be brought in subjection, and to become slavish. Suffer it not to be drawn up and down with unreasonable and unsociable lusts and motions, as it were with wires and nerves. Suffer it not any more either to repine at anything now present, or to fear and fly anything to come, which the destiny hath appointed thee. This I understand even of those things that are commonly called fair and good, as those which are commended either for the matter itself, or for curious workmanship. As for that which is truly good, what can it stand in need of more than either justice or truth, or more than either kindness and modesty? Which of all those either becomes good or fair, because commended or dispraised suffers any damage? Doth the emerald become worse in itself, or more vile if it be not commended? Doth gold, or ivory, or purple? Is there anything that doth, though never so common, as a knife, a flower, or a tree? X5. If so be that the souls remain after death, say they that will not believe it, how is the air from all eternity able to contain them? How is the earth, say I, ever from that time able to contain the bodies of them that are buried? For as here the change and resolution of dead bodies into another kind of subsistence, whatsoever it be, makes place for other dead bodies, so the souls after death transferred into the air, after they have conversed there a while, are either by way of transmutation, or transfusion, or conflagration, received again into that original rational substance, from which all others do proceed, and so give way to those souls, who before coupled and associated unto bodies, now begin to subsist single. This upon a supposition that the souls after death do for a while subsist single may be answered. And here, besides the number of bodies so buried and contained by the earth, we may further consider the number of several beasts eaten by us men and by other creatures. For notwithstanding that such a multitude of them is daily consumed, and as it were buried in the bodies of the eaters, yet is the same place and body able to contain them, by reason of their conversion, partly into blood, partly into air and fire. What in these things is the speculation of truth, to divide things into that which is passive and material, and that which is active and formal? 18. Not to wander out of the way, but upon every motion and desire to perform that which is just, and ever to be careful to attain to the true natural apprehension of every fancy that presents itself. Neither must thou do it by way of exercise or ostentation, that they that are by and hear thee may admire thee, but so always that nobody be privy to it, but himself alone, yea, though there be more present at the same time. These 9 particular heads, as so many gifts from the Muses, see that thou remember well, and begin one day, whilst thou art yet alive, to be a man indeed. But on the other side thou must take heed, as much to flatter them as to be angry with them, for both are equally uncharitable and equally hurtful. And in thy passions take it presently to thy consideration that to be angry is not the part of a man, but that to be meek and gentle, as it savours of more humanity, so of more manhood. That in this there is strength and nerves, or vigour and fortitude, whereof anger and indignation is altogether void. For the nearer everything is unto unpassionateness, the nearer it is unto power. And as grief doth proceed from weakness, so doth anger. For both he that is angry and that grieveth, have received a wound, and cowardly have, as it were, yielded themselves unto their affections. If thou wilt have a 10th also, receive this 10th gift from Hercules, the guide and leader of the Muses. That is a madman's part, to look that there should be no wicked men in the world, because it is impossible. Now for a man to brook well enough, that there should be wicked men in the world, but not to endure that any should transgress against himself, is against all equity, and indeed tyrannical. Chapter 17. Whatsoever proceeds from the gods immediately, that any man will grant totally depends from their divine providence. As for those things that are commonly said to happen by fortune, even those must be conceived to have dependence from nature, or from that first and general connection and concatenation of all those things, which more apparently by the divine providence are administered and brought to pass. All things flow from thence, and whatsoever it is that is both necessary and conducing to the whole part of which thou art. And whatsoever it is that is requisite and necessary for the preservation of the general, must of necessity for every particular nature be good and behoveful. And as for the whole, it is preserved, as by the perpetual mutation and conversion of the simple elements one into another, so also by the mutation and alteration of things mixed and compounded. Let these things suffice thee, let them be always unto thee, as thy general rules and precepts. As for thy thirst after books, away with it with all speed, that thou die not murmuring and complaining, but truly meek and well satisfied, and from thy heart thankful unto the gods. The second book. Why, that inward mistress part of man, if it be in its own true natural temper, is towards all worldly chances and events ever so disposed and affected, that it will easily turn and apply itself to that which may be and is within its own power to compass, when that cannot be which at to any one object, But whatsoever it is that it doth now intend and prosecute, it doth prosecute it with exception and reservation, so that whatsoever it is that falls out contrary to its first intentions, even that afterwards it makes its proper object. Even as the fire when it prevails upon those things that are in his way, by which things indeed a little fire would have been quenched, but a great fire doth soon turn to its own nature, and so consume whatsoever comes in his way, yea, by those very things it is made greater and greater. Chapter 18. Honor that which is chiefest and most powerful in the world, and that is it which makes use of all things and governs all things. So also in thyself honor that which is chiefest and most powerful, and is of one kind and nature with that which we now spake of. For it is the very same which, being in thee, turneth all other things to its own use, and by whom also thy life is governed. The proper countenance of them that are at the point of death. But were it so, that all anger and passion were so thoroughly quenched in thee, that it were altogether impossible to kindle it any more, yet herein must not thou rest satisfied, but further endeavor by good consequence of true ratiocination, perfectly to conceive and understand that all anger and passion is against reason. For if thou shalt not be sensible of thine innocence, if that also shall be gone from thee, the comfort of a good conscience, that thou doest all things according to reason, what shouldest thou live any longer for? All things that now thou seest are but for a moment. That nature by which all things in the world are administered will soon bring change and alteration upon them, and then of their substances make other things like unto them, and then soon after others again of the matter and substance of these, that so by these means the world may still appear fresh and new. Cast away from the opinion, and thou art safe. And what is it that hinders thee from casting of it away? When thou art grieved at anything, hast thou forgotten that all things happen according to the nature of the universe, and that him only it concerns who is in fault, and moreover, that what is now done is that which from ever hath been done in the world, and will ever be done, and is now done everywhere, how nearly all men are allied one to another by a kindred not of blood nor of seed, but of the same mind, nor of seed, but of the same mind. XIX. He that hath not one and the self-same general end always as long as he liveth, cannot possibly be one and the self-same man always. But this will not suffice except thou add also what ought to be this general end. For as the general conceit and apprehension of all those things which upon no certain ground are by the greater part of men deemed good, cannot be uniform and agreeable, but that only which is limited and restrained by some certain proprieties and conditions, as of community, that nothing be conceived good, which is not commonly and publicly good, so must the end also, that we propose unto ourselves, be common and sociable. For he that doth direct all his own private motions and purposes to that end, all his actions will be agreeable and uniform, and by that means will be still the same man. XX. Remember the fable of the country mouse and the city mouse, and the great fright and terror that this was put into. For a man to be proud and high-conceited, that he is not proud and high-conceited, is of all kind of pride and presumption the most intolerable. XX. To them that ask thee, where hast thou seen the gods, or how knowest thou certainly that there be gods, that thou art so devout in their worship? I answer first of all that even to the very eye they are in some manner visible and apparent. Secondly, neither have I ever seen mine own soul, and yet I respect and honor it. So then, for the gods, by the daily experience that I have of their power and providence towards myself and others, I know certainly that they are, and therefore worship them. Chapter 19. Whatsoever is expedient unto thee, O world, is expedient unto me, on nothing can either be unseasonable unto me, or out of date, which unto thee is seasonable. Whatsoever thy seasons bear, shall ever by me be esteemed as happy fruit, and increase. O nature, from thee are all things, in thee all things subsist, and to thee all tend. Could he say of Athens, Thou lovely city of Cecrops, and shalt not thou say of the world, Thou lovely city of God? This rule thou must remember to apply and make use of upon every conceit and apprehension of wrong. If the whole city be not hurt by this, neither am I certainly. And if the whole be not, why should I make it my private grievance? Consider rather what it is wherein he is overseen that is thought to have done the wrong. Again, often meditate how swiftly all things that subsist, and all things that are done in the world, are carried away, and as it were conveyed out of sight, for both the substance themselves, we see as a flood, are in a continual flux, and all actions in a perpetual change, and the causes themselves, subject to 1,000 alterations, neither is there anything almost, that may ever be said to be now settled and constant. Next unto this, and which follows upon it, consider both the infiniteness of the time already past, and the immense vastness of that which is to come, wherein all things are to be resolved and annihilated. Art not thou then a very fool, who for these things art either puffed up with pride, or distracted with cares, or canst find in thy heart to make such moans as for a thing that would trouble thee for a very long time? Consider the whole universe, whereof thou art but a very little part, and the whole age of the world together, whereof but a short and very momentary portion is allotted unto thee, and all the fates and destinies together, of which how much is it that comes to thy part and share? Again, another doth trespass against me. Let him look to that. He is master of his own disposition, and of his own operation. I, for my part, am in the meantime in possession of as much as the common nature would have me to possess, and that which mine own nature would have me do, I do. Let not that chief commanding part of thy soul be ever subject to any variation through any corporal either pain or pleasure, neither suffer it to be mixed with these, but let it both circumscribe itself, and confine those affections to their own proper parts and members. But if at any time they do reflect and rebound upon the mind and understanding, as in an united and compacted body it must needs, then must thou not go about to resist sense and feeling, it being natural. However, let not thy understanding to this natural sense and feeling, which, whether unto our flesh pleasant or painful, is unto us nothing properly, add an opinion of either good or bad, and all is well. XX. To live with the gods. He liveth with the gods, who at all times affords unto them the spectacle of a soul, both contented and well pleased with whatsoever is afforded or allotted unto her, and performing whatsoever is pleasing to that spirit whom, being part of himself, Jove hath appointed to every man as his overseer and governor. Chapter 20. They will say commonly, Meddle not with many things if thou wilt. Live cheerfully. Certainly there is nothing better than for a man to confine himself to necessary actions, to such and so many only as reason in a creature that knows itself born for society will command and enjoin. This will not only procure that cheerfulness which from the goodness, but that also which from the paucity of actions doth usually proceed. For since it is so that most of those things which we either speak or do are unnecessary, if a man shall cut them off, it must needs follow that he shall thereby gain much leisure and save much trouble, and therefore at every action a man must privately by way of admonition suggest unto himself, What? May not this that now I go about be of the number of unnecessary actions? Neither must he use himself to cut off actions only, but thoughts and imaginations also, that are unnecessary, for so will unnecessary consequent actions the better be prevented and cut off. XX. Try also how a good man's life of one who is well pleased with those things whatsoever, which among the common changes and chances of this world fall to his own lot and share, and can live well contented and fully satisfied in the justice of his own proper present action, and in the goodness of his disposition for the future, will agree with thee. Thou hast had experience of that other kind of life, make now trial of this also. Trouble not thyself any more henceforth, reduce thyself unto perfect simplicity. Doth any man offend? It is against himself that he doth offend. Why should it trouble thee? Hath anything happened unto thee? It is well whatsoever it be. It is that which of all the common chances of the world from the very beginning in the series of all other things that have or shall happen was destinated and appointed unto thee. To comprehend all in a few words, our life is short. We must endeavor to gain the present time with best discretion and justice. Use recreation with sobriety. XX Third. Either thou dost continue in this kind of life, and that is it which so long thou hast been used unto and therefore tolerable, or thou doest retire or leave the world, and that of thine own accord, and then thou hast thy mind, or thy life is cut off, and then mayest thou rejoice that thou hast ended thy charge. One of these must needs be. Be therefore of good comfort. Chapter 21. Wipe off all opinion, stay the force and violence of unreasonable. Lusts and affections circumscribe the present time. Examine whatsoever it be that has happened, either to thyself or to another. Divide all present objects, either in that which is formal or material. Think of the last hour. That which thy neighbor hath committed, where the guilt of it lieth, there let it rest. Examine in order whatsoever is spoken. Let thy mind penetrate both into the effects and into the causes. Rejoice thyself with true simplicity and modesty, and that all middle things between virtue and vice are indifferent unto thee. Finally, love mankind, obey God. Chapter 22. Either this world is a ogmali peace, because all disposed and governed by certain order, or if it be a mixture, though confused, yet still it is a comely peace. For is it possible that in thee there should be any beauty at all, and that in the whole world there should be nothing but disorder and confusion? And all things in it too by natural different properties, one from another differenced and distinguished, and yet all through diffused and by natural sympathy one to another united as they are. Armholes are offensive. What can he do? Such is his breath naturally, and such are his armholes, and from such an effect and such a smell must of necessity proceed. Oh, but the man! Sayest thou hath understanding in him, and might of himself know, that he by standing near cannot choose but offend. And thou also, God bless thee, hast understanding. Let thy reasonable faculty work upon his reasonable faculty, show him his fault, admonish him. If he hearken unto thee, thou hast cured him, and there will be no more occasion of anger. XX Third, where there shall neither roarer be nor harlot. Why so? As thou dost purpose to live, when thou hast retired thyself to some such place, where neither roarer nor harlot is, so mayest thou hear. And if they will not suffer thee, then mayest thou leave thy life rather than thy calling, but so as one that doth not think himself anyways wronged. Only as one would say, here is a smoke, I will out of it, and what a great matter is this? Now till some such thing force me out, I will continue free, neither shall any man hinder me to do what I will, and my will shall ever be by the proper nature of a reasonable and sociable creature, regulated and directed. Chapter 23. a black or malign disposition, an effeminate disposition, an hard, inexorable disposition, a wild, inhuman disposition, a sheepish disposition, a childish disposition, a blockish, a false, a scurril, a fraudulent, a tyrannical. What then? If he be a stranger in the world that knows not the things that are in it, why not be a stranger as well, that wonders at the things that are done in it? X4. He is a true fugitive that flies from reason, by which men are sociable. He blind who cannot see with the eyes of his understanding. He poor that stands in need of another, and hath not in himself all things needful for this life. He an aposteme of the world, who by being discontented with those things that happen unto him in the world, doth as it were apostatize, and separate himself from common nature's rational administration. For the same nature it is that brings this unto thee, whatsoever it be, that first brought thee into the world. He raises sedition in the city, who by irrational actions withdraws his own soul from that one and common soul of all rational creatures. XXV. There is who without so much as a coat, and there is who without so much as a book, doth put philosophy in practice. I am half naked, neither have I bread to eat, and yet I depart not from reason, saith one. But I say, I want the food of good teaching and instructions, and yet I depart not from reason. XXV. Is it not a cruel thing to forbid men to effect those things which they conceive to agree best with their own natures, and to tend most to their own proper good and behoof? But thou after a sort deniest them this liberty, as often as thou art angry with them for their sins. For surely they are led unto those sins whatsoever they be, as to their proper good and commodity. But it is not so, thou wilt object perchance. Thou therefore teach them better, and make it appear unto them, but be not thou angry with them. Chapter 24. That rational essence by which the universe is governed is for community and society, and therefore hath it both made the things that are worse for the best, and hath allied and knit together those which are best, as it were, in an harmony. Seest thou not how it hath subordinated and coordinated, and how it hath distributed unto everything according to its worth? And those which have the preeminency and superiority above all hath it united together into a mutual consent and agreement. So Secunda Maximus, then Secunda herself. So Epitincanus Diotimus, then Epitincanus himself. So Antoninus Pius Faustina his wife, then Antoninus himself. This is the course of the world. First Celer Adrianus, then Adrianus himself. And those austere ones, those that foretold other men's deaths, those that were so proud and stately, where are they now? Those austere ones, I mean, such as were Charax, and Demetrius the Platonic, and Eudaemon, and others like unto those. They were all but for one day, all dead and gone long since. Some of them no sooner dead than forgotten. Others soon turned into fables. Of others, even that which was fabulous is now long since forgotten. This thereafter thou must remember, that whatsoever thou art compounded of shall soon be dispersed, and that thy life and breath or thy soul shall either be no more or shall translated sp. and appointed to some certain place and station. XXV. The true joy of a man is to do that which properly belongs unto a man. That which is most proper unto a man is, first, to be kindly affected towards them that are of the same kind and nature as he is himself, to contemn all sensual motions and appetites, to discern rightly all plausible fancies and imaginations, to contemplate the nature of the universe, both it and things that are done in it. In which kind of contemplation 3 several relations are to be observed. The first to the apparent secondary cause. The second to the first original cause, God, from whom originally proceeds whatsoever doth happen in the world. The third and last, to them that we live and converse with, what use may be made of it, to their use and benefit. XX4. If pain be an evil, either it is in regard of the body, and that cannot be, because the body of itself is altogether insensible, or in regard of the soul, but it is in the power of the soul to preserve her own peace and tranquillity, and not to suppose that pain is evil. For all judgment and deliberation, all prosecution or aversation is from within, whither the sense of evil, except it be let in by opinion, cannot penetrate. These things, therefore, that are so secretly and invisibly wrought and brought to pass, thou must use to behold and contemplate, and not the things themselves only, but the power also by which they are effected, that thou mayest behold it, though not with the eyes of the body, yet as plainly and visibly as thou canst see and discern the outward efficient cause of the depression and elevation of anything. Chapter 25. How hast thou carried thyself hitherto towards the gods, towards thy parents, towards thy brethren, towards thy wife, towards thy children, towards thy masters, thy foster fathers, thy friends, thy domestics, thy servants? Is it so with thee that hitherto thou hast neither by word or deed wronged any of them? Remember withal through how many things thou hast already passed, and how many thou hast been able to endure, so that now the legend of thy life is full, and thy charge is accomplished. Again, how many truly good things have certainly by thee been discerned, how many pleasures, how many pains hast thou passed over with contempt? How many things eternally glorious hast thou despised? Towards how many perverse, unreasonable men hast thou carried thyself kindly and discreetly? In some, either there is a God, and then all is well, or if all things go by chance and fortune, yet mayest thou use thine own providence in those things that concern thee properly, and then art thou well. XX Sippin. Within a while the earth shall cover us all, and then she herself shall have her change, and then the course will be from one period of eternity unto another, and so a perpetual eternity. Now can any man that shall consider with himself in his mind the several rollings or successions of so many changes and alterations, and the swiftness of all these rulings, can he otherwise but contemn in his heart and despise all worldly things? The cause of the universe is, as it were, a strong torrent. It carrieth all away. Chapter 26. What? Art and profession. Soever thou hast learned, endeavor to affect it, and comfort thyself in it, and pass the remainder of thy life as one who from his whole heart commits himself, and whatsoever belongs unto him, unto the gods. And as for men, carry not thyself either tyrannically or servilely towards any. XX. If in this kind of life thy body be able to hold out, it is a shame that thy soul should faint first, and give over. Take heed, lest of a philosopher thou become a mere caser in time, and receive a new tincture from the court. For it may happen if thou dost not take heed. Keep thyself, therefore, truly simple, good, sincere, grave, free from all ostentation, a lover of that which is just, religious, kind, tender-hearted, strong, and vigorous to undergo anything that becomes thee. Endeavor to continue such as philosophy, hadst thou wholly and constantly applied thyself unto it, would have made and secured thee. Worship the gods, procure the welfare of men, this life is short. Charitable actions, and a holy disposition, is the only fruit of this earthly life. For it is not the part of a man that is a man indeed, to desire to live long, or to make much of his life whilst he liveth, but rather he that is such will in these things wholly refer himself unto the gods, and believing that which every woman can tell him, that no man can escape death, the only thing that he takes thought and care for is this, that what time he liveth he may live as well and as virtuously as he can possibly, and see. To look about, and with the eyes to follow the course of the stars and planets, as though thou wouldst run with them, and to mind perpetually the several changes of the elements one into another. For such fancies and imaginations help much to purge away the dross and filth of this our earthly life, and see. That also is a fine passage of Plato's, where he speaketh of worldly things in these words. Thou must also, as from some higher place, look down, as it were, upon the things of this world, as flocks, armies, husbandmen's labors, marriages, divorces, generations, deaths, the tumults of courts and places of judicatures, desert places, the several nations of barbarians, public festivals, mournings, fairs, markets. How all things upon earth are pell-mell, and how miraculously things contrary one to another concur to the beauty and perfection of this universe. Chapter 27. Consider in my mind, for example's sake, the times of Vespasian. Thou shalt see but the same things, some marrying, some bringing up children, some sick, some dying, some fighting, some feasting, some merchandising, some tilling, some flattering, some boasting, some suspecting, some undermining, some wishing to die, some fretting and murmuring at their present estate, some wooing, some hoarding, some seeking after magistracies, and some after kingdoms. And is not that their age quite over and ended? Again, consider now the times of Trajan. There likewise thou seest the very selfsame things, and that age also is now over and ended. In the like manner consider other periods, both of times and of whole nations, and see how many men, after they had with all their might and main intended and prosecuted some one worldly thing or other, did soon after drop away, and were resolved into the elements. But especially thou must call to mind them, whom thou thyself in thy lifetime hast known much distracted about vain things, and in the meantime neglecting to do that, and closely and inseparably, as fully satisfied with it to adhere unto it, which their own proper constitution did require. And here thou must remember that thy carriage in every business must be according to the worth and due proportion of it, for so shalt thou not easily be tired out and vexed, if thou shalt not dwell upon small matters longer than is fitting. Chapter 28. Those words which once were common and ordinary are now become obscure and obsolete, and so the names of men once commonly known and famous are now become in a manner obscure and obsolete names. Camillus, Casso, Valesius, Leonatus, not long after, Scipio, Cato, then Augustus, then Adrianus, then Antoninus Pius, all these in a short time will be out of date and, as things of another world as it were, become fabulous. And this I say of them who once shined as the wonders of their ages, for as for the rest, no sooner are they expired than with them all their fame and memory. And what is it then that shall always be remembered? All is vanity. What is it that we must bestow our care and diligence upon? Even upon this only, that our minds and wills be just, that our actions be charitable, that our speech be never deceitful, or that our understanding be not subject to error, that our inclination be always set to embrace whatsoever shall happen unto us, as necessary, as usual, as ordinary, as flowing from such a beginning and such a fountain, from which both thou thyself and all things are. Willingly, therefore, and wholly surrender up thyself unto that fatal concatenation, yielding up thyself unto the fates, to be disposed of at their pleasure. X. From some high place, as it were, to look down, and to behold here flocks, and there sacrifices, without number, and all kind of navigation, some in a rough and stormy sea, and some in a calm, the general differences, or different estates of things, some that are now are together, and some other things that are at their last. their lives also who were long ago, and theirs who shall be hereafter, and the present estate and life of those many nations of barbarians that are now in the world, thou must likewise consider in thy mind. And how many there be who never so much as heard of thy name, how many that will soon forget it, how many who but even now did commend thee, within a very little while perchance will speak ill of thee. So that neither fame nor honor nor anything else that this world doth afford is worth the while. The sum then of all whatsoever doth happen unto thee, whereof God is the cause, to accept it contentedly whatsoever thou doest, whereof thou thyself art the cause, to do it justly, which will be, if both in thy resolution and in thy action thou have no further end than to do good unto others, as being that which by thy natural constitution as a man thou art bound unto. XXX. Many of those things that trouble and straiten thee, it is in thy power to cut off, as wholly depending from mere conceit and opinion, and then thou shalt have room enough. Chapter 29. Whatsoever is now present, and from day to day hath its existence, all objects of memories, and the minds and memories themselves incessantly consider. All things that are, have their being by change and alteration. Use thyself therefore often to meditate upon this, that the nature of the universe delights in nothing more than in altering those things that are, and in making others like unto them, so that we may say that whatsoever is but as it were the seed of that which shall be. For if thou think that that only is seed which either the earth or the womb receiveth, thou art very simple. Ox X. Thou art now ready to die, and yet hast thou not attained to that perfect simplicity. Thou art yet subject to many troubles and perturbations, not yet free from all fear and suspicion of external accidents, nor yet either so meekly disposed towards all men as thou shouldest, or so affected as one, whose only study and only wisdom is, to be just in all his actions. XXX. Let death surprise me when it will, and where it will I may be Saunja, or a happy man nevertheless. For he is a happy man, who in his lifetime dealeth unto himself a happy lot and portion. A happy lot and portion is good inclinations of the soul, good desires, good actions. The Sixth Book, Chapter 30. I consist of body and soul. Unto my body all things are indifferent, for of itself it cannot affect one thing more than another with apprehension of any difference. As for my mind, all things which are not within the verge of her own operation are indifferent unto her, and for her own operations, those altogether depend of her. Neither does she busy herself about any, but those that are present, for as for future and past operations, those also are now at this present indifferent unto her. XXXI. As long as the foot doth that which belongeth unto it to do, and the hand that which belongs unto it, their labor, whatsoever it be, is not unnatural. So a man, as long as he doth that which is proper unto a man, his labor cannot be against nature, and if it be not against nature, then neither is it hurtful unto him. But if it were so that happiness did consist in pleasure, how came notorious robbers, impure, abominable livers, parricides, and tyrants in so large a measure to have their part of pleasures? That, therefore, which is chief in every man's constitution is, that he intend the common good. The second is, that he yield not to any lusts and motions of the flesh. For it is the part and privilege of the reasonable and intellective faculty that she can so bound herself as that neither the sensitive nor the appetitive faculties may not anyways prevail upon her. For both these are brutish, and therefore over both she challengeth mastery, and cannot anyways endure, if in her right temper, to be subject unto either. And this indeed most justly, For by nature she was ordained to command all in the body. The third thing proper to man by his constitution is to avoid all rashness and precipitancy, and not to be subject to error. To these things, then, let the mind apply herself and go straight on, without any distraction about other things, and she hath her end, and by consequent her happiness. XXXX. As one who had lived and were now to die by right, whatsoever is yet remaining, bestow that wholly as a gracious overplus upon a virtuous life. Love and affect that only, whatsoever it be that happeneth, and is by the fates appointed unto thee. For what can be more reasonable? And as anything doth happen unto thee by way of cross or calamity, call to mind presently and set before thine eyes the examples of some other men to whom the self-same thing did once happen likewise. Well, what did they? They grieved, they wondered, they complained, and where are they now? All dead and gone. Wilt thou also be like one of them? Or rather leaving to men of the world, whose life, both in regard of themselves and them that they converse with, is nothing but mere mutability, or men of as fickle minds, as fickle bodies, ever changing and soon change themselves. Let it be thine only care and study how to make a right use of all such accidents. For there is good use to be made of them, and they will prove fit matter for thee to work upon, if it shall be both thy care and thy desire, that whatsoever thou doest, thou thyself mayest like and approve thyself for it. And both these see that thou remember well, according as the diversity of the matter of the action that thou art about shall require. Look within. Within is the fountain of all good, such a fountain where springing waters can never fail, so thou dig still deeper and deeper. Chapter 31. Behold and observe what is the state of their rational part, and those that the world doth account wise, see what things they fly and are afraid of, and what things they hunt after. If ever thou sawest either a hand, or a foot, or a head lying by itself in some place or other, as cut off from the rest of the body, such must thou conceive him to make himself, as much as in him lieth, that either is offended with anything that is happened, whatsoever it be, and as it were divides himself from it, or that commits anything against the natural law of mutual correspondence and society among men, or he that commits any act of uncharitableness. Whosoever thou art such, thou art cast forth, I know not whither, out of the general unity which is according to nature. Thou went born indeed apart, but now thou hast cut thyself off. However, herein is matter of joy and exultation, that thou mayest be united again. God hath not granted it unto any other part, that once separated and cut off it might be reunited and come together again. But, behold, that goodness how great and immense it is, which hath so much esteemed man, as at first he was so made, that he needed not, except he would himself, have divided himself from the whole. So once divided and cut off, it hath so provided and ordered it, that if he would himself he might return, and grow together again, and be admitted into its former rank and place of a part, as he was before. XX62. Let it not be in any man's power to say truly of thee that thou art not truly simple, or sincere and open, or not good. Let him be deceived, whosoever he be, that shall have any such opinion of thee. For all this doth depend of thee. For who is it that should hinder thee from being either truly simple or good? Do thou only resolve rather not to live than not to be such. For indeed neither doth it stand with reason that he should live that is not such. What then is it that may upon this present occasion, according to best reason and discretion, either be said or done? For whatsoever it be, it is in thy power either to do it or to say it, and therefore seek not any pretenses as though thou wert hindered. Thou wilt never cease groaning and complaining until such time as that. What pleasure is unto the voluptuous be unto thee to do in everything that presents itself, whatsoever may be done conformably and agreeably to the proper constitution of man, or to man as he is a man. For thou must account that pleasure whatsoever it be that thou mayest do according to thine own nature, and to do this every place will fit thee. Unto the cylindrus or roller it is not granted to move everywhere according to its own proper motion, as neither unto the water, nor unto the fire, nor unto any other thing, that either is merely natural, or natural and sensitive, but not rational, for many things there be that can hinder their operations. But of the mind and understanding this is the proper privilege, that according to its own nature, and as it will itself, it can pass through every obstacle that it finds, and keep straight on forwards. Setting therefore before thine eyes this happiness and felicity of thy mind, whereby it is able to pass through all things, and is capable of all motions, whether as the fire, upwards, or as the stone downwards, or as the cylindrus through that which is sloping, content thyself with it, and seek not after any other thing. For all other kind of hindrances that are not hindrances of thy mind either, they are proper to the body, or merely proceed from the opinion, reason not making that resistance that it should, but basely and cowardly suffering itself to be foiled, and of themselves can neither wound nor do any hurt at all. Else must he of necessity, whosoever he be that meets with any of them, become worse than he was before. For so is it in all other subjects that is thought hurtful unto them, whereby they are made worse. But here contrariwise, man, if he make that good use of them that he should, is rather the better and the more praiseworthy for any of those kind of hindrances than otherwise. But generally remember that nothing can hurt a natural citizen that is not hurtful unto the city itself, nor anything hurt the city that is not hurtful unto the law itself. But none of these casualties or external hindrances do hurt the law itself, or are contrary to that course of justice and equity by which public societies are maintained, neither therefore do they hurt either city or citizen. For as he that is bitten by a mad dog is afraid of everything almost that he seeth, so unto him whom the dogmata have once bitten, or in whom true knowledge hath made an impression, everything almost that he sees or reads, be it never so short or ordinary, doth afford a good memento, to put him out of all grief and fear, as that of the poet, the winds blow upon the trees, and their leaves fall upon the trees, and their leaves fall upon the ground. Then do the trees begin to bud again, and by the springtime they put forth new branches. So is the generation of men. Some come into the world, and others go out of it. Of these leaves then thy children are. And they also that applaud thee so gravely, or that applaud thy speeches with that their usual acclamation, O wisely spoken, aye, and speak well of thee, as on the other side they that stick not to curse thee, they that privately and secretly dispraise and deride thee, they also are but leaves. And they also that shall follow, in whose memories the names of men famous after death is preserved, they are but leaves neither. For even so is it of all these worldly things. Their spring comes, and they are put forth, then blows the wind, and they go down. And then in lieu of them grow others out of the wood or common matter of all things like unto them. But to endure but for a while is common unto all. Why then shouldest thou so earnestly either seek after these things, or fly from them, as though they should endure forever? Yet a little while, and thine eyes will be closed up, and for him that carries thee to thy grave shall another mourn within a while after. A good eye must be good to see whatsoever is to be seen, and not green things only. For that is proper to sore eyes. So must a good ear and a good smell be ready for whatsoever is either to be heard or smelt, and a good stomach as indifferent to all kinds of food as a millstone is to whatsoever she was made for to grind. As ready, therefore, must a sound understanding be for whatsoever shall happen. But he that saith, O that my children might live, and, O that all men might commend me for whatsoever I do, is an eye that seeks after green things, or as teeth after that which is tender. XXX vicis. There is not any man that is so happy in his death, but that some of those that are by him when he dies will be ready to rejoice at his supposed calamity. Is it one that was virtuous and wise indeed? Will there not some one or other be found who thus will say to himself, Well, now at last shall I be at rest from this pedagogue? He did not indeed otherwise trouble us much, but I know well enough that in his heart he did much condemn us. Thus will they speak of the virtuous. But as for us, alas, how many things be there, for which there be many that glad would be to be rid of us. This therefore, if thou shalt think of whensoever thou diest, thou shalt die the more willingly, when thou shalt think with thyself, I am now to depart from that world, wherein those that have been my nearest friends and acquaintances, they whom I have so much suffered for, so often prayed for, and for whom I have taken such care, even they would have me die, hoping that after my death they shall live happier than they did before. What then should any man desire to continue here any longer? Nevertheless, whensoever thou diest, thou must not be less kind and loving unto them for it, but as before see them, continue to be their friend, to wish them well, and meekly and gently to carry thyself towards them, but yet so that on the other side it make thee not the more unwilling to die. But as it fareth with them that die an easy quick death, whose soul is soon separated from their bodies, so must thy separation from them be. To these had nature joined and annexed me, now she parts us. I am ready to depart, as from friends and kinsmen, but yet without either reluctancy or compulsion. For this also is according to nature. Chapter 32. In another man's mind, and understanding thy evil, cannot subsist, nor in any proper temper or distemper of the natural constitution of thy body, which is but as it were the coat or cottage of thy soul. Wherein then, but in that part of thee, wherein the conceit and apprehension of any misery can subsist? Let not that part therefore admit any such conceit, and then all is well. Though thy body which is so near it should either be cut or burnt, or suffer any corruption or putrefaction, yet let that part to which it belongs, to judge of these, be still at rest. That is, let her judge this, that whatsoever it is, that equally may happen to a wicked man and to a good man, is neither good nor evil. For that which happens equally to him that lives according to nature, and to him that doth not, is neither according to nature nor against it, and by consequent neither good nor bad. Chapter 33. Ever consider and think upon the world as being but one living substance, and having but one soul, and how all things in the world are terminated into one sensitive power, and are done by one general motion, as it were, and deliberation of that one soul, and how all things that are concur in the cause of one another's being, and by what manner of connection and concatenation all things happen, of which the whole sea is but as one drop, and the great Mount Athos but as a clod, as all present time is but as one point of eternity. All petty things, all things that are soon altered, soon perished, and all things come from one beginning, either all severally and particularly deliberated and resolved upon by the general ruler and governor of all, or all by necessary consequence. so that the dreadful hiatus of a gaping lion, and all poison and all hurtful things, are but, as the thorn and the mire, the necessary consequences of goodly fair things. Think not of these, therefore, as things contrary to those which thou dost much honor and respect, but consider in thy mind the true fountain of all. XXX4. He that seeth the things that are now hath seen all that either was ever or ever shall be, for all things are of one kind, and all like one unto another. Meditate often upon the connection of all things in the world, and upon the mutual relation that they have one unto another. For all things are, after a sort, folded and involved one within another, and by these means all agree well together. For one thing is consequent unto another, by local motion, by natural conspiration and agreement, and by substantial union, or reduction of all substances into one. Chapter 34. What art thou, that better and divine part accepted but as? Epictetus said, well, a wretched soul appointed to carry a carcass up and down? XXXV. To suffer change can be no hurt, as no benefit it is by change to attain to being. The age and time of the world is as it were a flood and swift current, consisting of the things that are brought to pass in the world. For as soon as anything hath appeared and is passed away, another succeeds, and that also will presently out of sight. Manner of men they be, and for their minds and understandings what is their present estate, whose good word and testimony thou dost desire. For then neither wilt thou see cause to complain of them that offend against their wills, or find any want of their applause, if once thou dost but penetrate into the true force and ground both of their opinions and of their desires. No soul, saith he, is willingly bereft of the truth, and by consequent neither of justice or temperance or kindness and mildness, nor of anything that is of the same kind. It is most needful that thou shouldst always remember this, for so shalt thou be far more gentle and moderate towards all men. XXV. What pain soever thou art in, let this presently come to thy mind, that it is not a thing whereof thou needest to be ashamed, neither is it a thing whereby thy understanding, that hath the government of all, can be made worse. For neither in regard of the substance of it, nor in regard of the end of it, which is to intend the common good, can it alter and corrupt it. This also of Epicurus mayest thou in most pains find some help of, that it is neither intolerable nor eternal, so thou keep thyself to the true bounds and limits of reason, and give not way to opinion. This also thou must consider, that many things there be which oftentimes unsensibly trouble and vex thee, as not armed against them with patience, because they go not ordinarily under the name of pains, which in very deed are of the same nature as pain, as to slumber unquietly, to suffer heat, to want appetite. When therefore any of these things make thee discontented, check thyself with these words, now hath pain given thee the foil, thy courage hath failed thee. Chapter 35. Fit and accommodate thyself to that estate and to those occurrences which by the destinies have been annexed unto thee, and love those men whom thy fate it is to live with, but love them truly. An instrument, a tool, an utensil, whatsoever it be, if it be fit for the purpose it was made for, it is as it should be, though he perchance that made and fitted it be out of sight and gone. But in things natural, that power which hath framed and fitted them is and abideth within them still, for which reason she ought also the more to be respected, and we are the more obliged. If we may live and pass our time according to her purpose and intention, to think that all is well with us, and according to our own minds, after this manner also, and in this respect it is, that he that is all in all doth enjoy his happiness. Chapter 36. Whatsoever doth happen in the world is, in the course of nature, as usual and ordinary as a rose in the spring and fruit in summer. Of the same nature is sickness and death, slander and lying in wait, and whatsoever else ordinarily doth unto fools use to be occasion either of joy or sorrow. That whatsoever it is that comes after doth always very naturally, and as it were familiarly, follow upon that which was before. For thou must consider the things of the world, not as a loose, independent number, consisting merely of necessary events, but as a discrete connection of things orderly and harmoniously disposed. There is then to be seen in the things of the world not a bare succession, but an admirable correspondence and affinity. XXX 17. Let that of Heraclitus never be out of thy mind, that the death of earth is water, and the death of water is air, and the death of air is fire, and so on, the contrary. Remember him also who was ignorant whither the way did lead, and how that reason being the thing by which all things in the world are administered, and which men are continually and most inwardly conversant with, yet is the thing which ordinarily they are most in opposition with, and how those things which daily happen among them cease not daily to be strange unto them, and that we should not either speak or do anything as men in their sleep by opinion and bare imagination, for then we think we speak and do, and that we must not be as children who follow their father's example, for best reason alleging their bare bachignoro. Chapter 37. We all work to one effect, some willingly and with a rational apprehension of what we do, others without any such knowledge. As I think Heraclitus in a place speaketh of them that sleep, that even they do work in their kind, and do confer to the general operations of the world. One man therefore doth cooperate after one sort, and another after another sort, but even he that doth murmur, and to his power doth resist and hinder, even he as much as any doth cooperate. For of such also did the world stand in need. Now do thou consider among which of these thou wilt rank thyself. For as for him who is the administrator of all, he will make good use of thee, whether thou wilt or no, and make thee as a part and member of the whole. So to cooperate with him, that whatsoever thou doest shall turn to the furtherance of his own counsels and resolutions. But be not thou for shame such a part of the whole, as that vile and ridiculous verse, which Chrysippus in a place doth mention, is a part of the comedy. XXX teeth. Doth either the sun take upon him to do that which belongs to the rain, or his son Aesculapius that which unto the earth doth properly belong? How is it with every one of the stars in particular? Though they all differ one from another, and have their several charges and functions by themselves, do they not all nevertheless concur and cooperate to one end? XXXX. For it is a thing very possible that a man should be a very divine man, and yet be altogether unknown. This thou must ever be mindful of, as of this also, that a man's true happiness doth consist in very few things. And that although thou dost despair that thou shalt ever be a good either logician or naturalist, yet thou art never the further off by it from being either liberal or modest or charitable or obedient unto God. Chapter 38. Even as if any of the gods should tell thee thou shalt certainly die tomorrow or next day, thou wouldst not, except thou wert extremely base and pusillanimous, take it for a great benefit rather to die the next day after than tomorrow. For alas, what is the difference? So, for the same reason, think it no great matter to die rather many years after than the very next day. XXX. That which is a hindrance of the senses is an evil to the sensitive nature. That which is a hindrance of the appetitive and persecutive faculty is an evil to the sensitive nature. As of the sensitive, so of the vegetative constitution, whatsoever is a hindrance unto it is also in that respect an evil unto the same. And so likewise, whatsoever is a hindrance unto the mind and understanding must needs be the proper evil of the reasonable nature. Now apply all those things unto thyself. Do either pain or pleasure seize on thee? Let the senses look to that. Hast thou met with some obstacle or other in thy purpose and intention? If thou didst propose without due reservation and exception, now hath thy reasonable part received a blow indeed. But if in general thou didst propose unto thyself whatsoever might be, thou art not thereby either hurt nor properly hindered. For in those things that properly belong unto the mind, she cannot be hindered by any man. It is not fire, nor iron, nor the power of a tyrant, nor the power of a slandering tongue, nor anything else that can penetrate into her. XL. If once round and solid, there is no fear that ever it will change. Chapter 39. Let it be thy perpetual meditation. How many physicians, who once looked so grim and so theatrically shrunk their brows upon their patients, are dead and gone themselves. How many astrologers, after that in great ostentation they had foretold the death of some others, how many philosophers, after so many elaborate tracts and volumes concerning either mortality or immortality, how many brave captains and commanders, after the death and slaughter of so many, how many kings and tyrants, after they had with such horror and insolency abused their power upon men's lives, as though themselves had been immortal, how many, that I may so speak, whole cities, both men and towns, Hellas, Pompeii, Herculaneum, and others innumerable, are dead and gone. Run them over also, whom thou thyself one after another hast known in thy time to drop away. Such and such a one took care of such and such a one's burial, and soon after was buried himself. So one, so another, and all things in a short time. For herein lieth all indeed, ever to look upon all worldly things as things for their continuance, that are but for a day, and for their worth most vile and contemptible, as for example, what is man? That which but the other day when he was conceived was a vile snivel, and within few days shall be either an embalmed carcass or mere ashes. Thus must thou, according to truth and nature, truly consider how man's life is but for a very moment of time, and so depart meek and contented, even as if a ripe olive falling should praise the ground that bare her, and give thanks to the tree that begat her. Go! Can the gods, who are immortal, for the continuance of so many ages bear without indignation with such and so many sinners as have ever been? Yea, not only so, but also take such care for them that they want nothing, and dost thou so grievously take on, as one that could bear with them no longer, thou that art but for a moment of time? Yea, thou that art one of those sinners thyself? A very ridiculous thing it is that any man should dispense with vice and wickedness in himself, which is in his power to restrain, and should go about to suppress it in others, which is altogether impossible. Chapter 40. Thou must be like a promontory of the sea, against which, though the waves beat continually, yet it both itself stands, and about it are those swelling waves stilled and quieted. Chapter 41. O wretched I, to whom this mischance is happened, nay, happy I, to whom this thing being happened I can continue without grief, neither wounded by that which is present, nor in fear of that which is to come. For as for this, it might have happened unto any man, but any man having such a thing befallen him could not have continued without grief. Why then should that rather be an unhappiness than this a happiness? But however canst thou, O man, term that unhappiness which is no mischance to the nature of man? Canst thou think that a mischance to the nature of man, which is not contrary to the end and will of his nature? What then hast thou learned is the will of man's nature? Doth that then which hath happened unto thee hinder thee from being just, or magnanimous, or temperate, or wise, or circumspect, or true, or modest, or free, or from anything else of all those things in the present enjoying and possession whereof the nature of man, as then enjoying all that is proper unto her, is fully satisfied? Now to conclude, upon all occasion of sorrow, remember henceforth to make use of this dogma, that whatsoever it is that hath happened unto thee is in very deed no such thing of itself as a misfortune, but that to bear it generously is certainly great happiness. XLIT. It is but an ordinary coarse one, yet it is a good, effectual remedy against the fear of death, for a man to consider in his mind the examples of such, who greedily and covetously, as it were, did for a long time enjoy their lives. What have they got more than they whose deaths have been untimely? Are not they themselves dead at the last? As Cadicians, Fabius, Julianus, Lepidus, or any other who in their lifetime, having buried many, were at the last buried themselves. The whole space of any man's life is but little, and as little as it is, with what troubles, with what manner of dispositions, and in the society of how wretched a body must it be passed. Let it be therefore unto thee altogether as a matter of indifferency. For if thou shalt look backward, behold, what an infinite chaos of time doth present itself unto thee, and as infinite a chaos if thou shalt look forward. In that which is so infinite, what difference can there be between that which liveth but 3 days, and that which liveth 3 ages? Chapter 42. What object soever our reasonable and sociable faculty doth meet with, that affords nothing either for the satisfaction of reason or for the practice of charity, she worthily doth think unworthy of herself. Sli 3. Take me and throw me where thou wilt, I am indifferent. For there also I shall have that spirit which is within me propitious, that is well pleased and fully contented both in that constant disposition and with those particular actions which to its own proper constitution are suitable and agreeable. XLIV. Is this then a thing of that worth, that for it my soul should suffer and become worse than it was? As either basely dejected, or disordinately affected, or confounded within itself, or terrified, what can there be that thou shouldest so much esteem? Chapter 43. Let thy course ever be the most compendious way, the most. Compendious is that which is according to nature, that is, in all both words and deeds, ever to follow that which is most sound and perfect. For such a resolution will free a man from all trouble, strife, dissembling, and ostentation. The 5th Book. XLV. Dost thou grieve that thou dost weigh but so many pounds, and not 300 rather? Just as much reason hast thou to grieve that thou must live but so many years, and not longer. For as for bulk and substance thou dost content thyself with that proportion of it that is allotted unto thee, so shouldst thou for time. For whilst in general thou dost thus reason with thyself, that the kind of them must needs be in the world, thou wilt be the better able to use meekness towards every particular. This also thou shalt find of very good use, upon every such occasion presently to consider with thyself what proper virtue nature hath furnished man with against such a vice, or to encounter with a disposition vicious in this kind. As, for example, against the unthankful it hath given goodness and meekness as an antidote, and so against another vicious, in another kind, some other peculiar faculty. And generally is it not in thy power to instruct him better, that is in an error? For whosoever sinneth doth in that decline from his purposed end, and is certainly deceived. And again, what art thou the worse for his sin? For thou shalt not find that any one of these, against whom thou art incensed, hath in very deed done anything whereby thy mind, the only true subject of thy hurt and evil, can be made worse than it was. And what a matter of either grief or wonder is this, if he that is unlearned do the deeds of one that is unlearned? Should not thou rather blame thyself, who, when upon very good grounds of reason thou mightst have thought it very probable that such a thing would by such a one be committed, didst not only not foresee it, but moreover dost wonder at it, that such a thing should be? But then especially when thou dost find fault with either an unthankful or a false man, must thou reflect upon thyself. For without all question thou thyself art much in fault, if either of one that were of such a disposition thou didst expect that he should be true unto thee, or when unto any thou didst a good turn, thou didst not there bound thy thoughts, as one that had obtained his end, nor didst not think that from the action itself thou hadst received a full reward of the good that thou hadst done. For what wouldst thou have more? Unto him that is a man thou hast done a good turn, doth not that suffice thee? What thy nature required, that hast thou done. Must thou be rewarded for it? As if either the eye for that it seeth, or the feet that they go, should require satisfaction. For as these being by nature appointed for such an use, can challenge no more, than that they may work according to their natural constitution, so man being born to do good unto others, whensoever he doth a real good unto any, by helping them out of error, or though but in middle things, as in matter of wealth, life, preferment, and the like, doth help to further their desires, he doth that for which he was made, and therefore can require no more. The 10th book. Aye, O my soul, the time I trust will be when thou shalt be good, simple, single, more open and visible than that body by which it is enclosed. Thou wilt one day be sensible of their happiness, whose end is love, and their affections dead to all worldly things. Thou shalt one day be full and in want of no external thing, not seeking pleasure from anything, either living or insensible, that this world can afford, neither wanting time for the continuation of thy pleasure, nor place and opportunity, nor the favor either of the weather or of men. When thou shalt have content in thy present estate, and all things present shall add to thy content, when thou shalt persuade thyself that thou hast all things, all for thy good, and all by the providence of the gods, and of things future also shalt be as confident that all will do well, as tending to the maintenance and preservation in some sort of his perfect welfare and happiness, who is perfection of life, of goodness and beauty, who begets all things, and containeth all things in himself, and in himself doth recollect all things from all places that are dissolved, that of them he may beget others again like unto them. Such one day shall be thy disposition, that thou shalt be able, both in regard of the gods and in regard of men, so to fit and order thy conversation, as neither to complain of them at any time for anything that they do, nor to do anything thyself for which thou mayest justly be condemned. 2. As one who is altogether governed by nature, let it be thy care to observe what it is that thy nature in general doth require. That done, if thou find not that thy nature, as thou art a living sensible creature, will be the worse for it, thou mayest proceed. Next then thou must examine what thy nature, as thou art a living sensible creature, doth require. And that, whatsoever it be, thou mayest admit of, and do it, if thy nature, as thou art a reasonable living creature, will not be the worse for it. Now whatsoever is reasonable is also sociable. Keep thyself to these rules, and trouble not thyself about idle things. Chapter 44. The nature of the universe did once, certainly before it was, created whatsoever it hath done since, deliberate, and so resolve upon the creation of the world. Now, since that time, whatsoever it is that is and happens in the world is either but a consequent of that one, and world takes any thought and care of things particular, they are surely his reasonable and principal creatures that are the proper object of his particular care and providence. This often thought upon will much conduce to thy tranquillity. The Book, chapter 45. Let us do our best endeavors to persuade them, but however, if reason and justice lead thee to it, do it, though they be never so much against it. But if any shall by force withstand thee and hinder thee in it, convert thy virtuous inclination from one object unto another, from justice to contented equanimity and cheerful patience, so that what in the one is thy hindrance, thou mayest make use of it for the exercise of another virtue, and remember that it was with due exception and reservation that thou didst at first incline and desire. For thou didst not set thy mind upon things impossible. Upon what then? That all thy desires might ever be moderated with this due kind of reservation. And this thou hast and mayest always obtain, whether the thing desired be in thy power or no. And what do I care for more, if that for which I was born and brought forth into the world? To rule all my desires with reason and discretion may be? Yea, but it is a thing of that nature, as that thy life is not worth the while, except it may be performed. If it be so, upon condition that thou be kindly and lovingly disposed towards all men, thou mayest be gone. For even then, as much as at any time, art thou in a very good estate of performance, when thou doest die in charity with those that are an obstacle unto thy performance. Chapter 46. The ambitious supposeth another man's act praise and applause, too, be his own happiness, the voluptuous his own sense and feeling, but he that is wise his own action. Altogether unconquerable when once recollected in herself, she seeks no other content than this, that she cannot be forced, yea, though it so fall out, that it be even against reason itself, that it cloth bandy. How much less when by the help of reason she is able to judge of things with discretion. And therefore let thy chief fort and place of defense be a mind free from passions, a stronger place whereunto to make his refuge, and so to become impregnable and better fortified than this, hath no man. He that seeth not this is unlearned. He that seeth it, and betaketh not himself to this place of refuge, is unhappy. Chapter 47. It is in thy power, absolutely to exclude all manner of conceit, and opinion as concerning this matter, and by the same means to exclude all grief and sorrow from thy soul. For as for the things and objects themselves, they of themselves have no such power, whereby to beget and force upon us any opinion at all. As they present themselves unto thee, and add not unto them, it is reported unto thee that such a one speaketh ill of thee. Well, that he speaketh ill of thee, so much is reported. But that thou art hurt thereby is not reported. That is the addition of opinion, which thou must exclude. I see that my child is sick. That he is sick I see, but that he is in danger of his life also I see it not. Thus thou must use to keep thyself to the first motions and apprehensions of things, as they present themselves outwardly, and add not unto them from within thyself through mere conceit and opinion. Or rather, add unto them hot, as one that understandeth the true nature of all things that happen in the world. Chapter 48. Use thyself, when any man speaks unto thee, so to hearken unto him, as that in the interim thou give not way to any other thoughts, that so thou mayest, as far as is possible, seem fixed and fastened to his very soul, whosoever he be that speaks unto thee. X likes, that which is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee. Avoid them, Let this suffice. Add not presently speaking unto thyself, what serve these things for in the world? For this, one that is acquainted with the mysteries of nature will laugh at thee for it, as a carpenter would or a shoemaker, if meeting in either of their shops with some shavings, or small remnants of their work, thou shouldest blame them for it. And yet those men, it is not for want of a place where to throw them that they keep them in their shops for a while, but the nature of the universe hath no such outplace. But herein doth consist the wonder of her art and skill, that she having once circumscribed herself within some certain bounds and limits, whatsoever is within her that seems either corrupted or old or unprofitable, she can change it into herself, and of these very things can make new things, so that she needeth not to seek elsewhere out of herself, either for a new supply of matter and substance, or for a place where to throw out whatsoever is irrecoverably putrid and corrupt. Thus she, as for place, so for matter and art, is herself sufficient unto herself. Chapter 49. Not to be slack and negligent, or loose and wanton in thy actions, nor contentious and troublesome in thy conversation, nor to rove and wander in thy fancies and imaginations. Not basely to contract thy soul, nor boisterously to sally out with it, or furiously to launch out, as it were, nor ever to want employment. They kill me, they cut my flesh, they persecute my person with curses. What then? May not thy mind for all this continue pure, prudent, temperate, just, as a fountain of sweet and clear water, though she be cursed by some stander by, yet do her springs nevertheless still run as sweet and clear as before. Yea, though either dirt or dung be thrown in, yet is it no sooner thrown than dispersed, and she cleared. She cannot be dyed or infected by it. What then must I do that I may have within myself an overflowing fountain and not a well? Beget thyself by continual pains and endeavors to true liberty with charity, and true simplicity and modesty. He that knoweth not what the world is, knoweth not where he himself is. And he that knoweth not what the world was made for cannot possibly know either what are the qualities or what is the nature of the world. Now he that in either of these is to seek for what he himself was made is ignorant also. What then dost thou think of that man who proposeth unto himself as a matter of great moment the noise and applause of men, who both where they are and what they are themselves are altogether ignorant? Dost thou desire to be commended of that man who thrice in 1 hour perchance doth himself curse himself? Dost thou desire to please him who pleaseth not himself? Or dost thou think that he pleaseth himself who doth use to repent himself almost of everything that he doth? Chapter 50. Will either passengers or patients find fault, and complain either, the one if they be well carried, or the others if well cured? Do they take care for any more than this, the one, that their shipmaster may bring them safe to land, and the other, that their physician may effect their recovery? How many of them who came into the world at the same time when I did are already gone out of it? To them that are sick of the jaundice honey seems bitter, and to them that are bitten by a mad dog the water terrible, and to children a little ball seems a fine thing. And why then should I be angry? Or do I think that error and false opinion is less powerful to make men transgress than either choler, being immoderate and excessive, to cause the jaundice, or poison to cause rage? No man can hinder thee to live as thy nature doth require. Nothing can happen unto thee, but what the common good of nature doth require. Live. What manner of men they be whom they seek to please, and what to get, and by what actions, how soon time will cover and bury all things, and how many it hath already buried. Aye, what is wickedness? It is that which many time and often thou hast already seen and known in the world. And so oft as anything doth happen that might otherwise trouble thee, let this memento presently come to thy mind, that it is that which thou hast already often seen and known. Generally, above and below, thou shalt find but the same things, the very same things whereof ancient stories, middle-aged stories, and fresh stories are full, whereof towns are full, and houses full. There is nothing that is new. All things that are both usual and of little continuance. Chapter 52. Not only, now henceforth to have a common breath, or to hold correspondency of breath with that air that compasseth us about, but to have a common mind, or to hold correspondency of mind also with that rational substance which compasseth all things. For that also is of itself, and of its own nature, if a man can but draw it in as he should, everywhere diffused, and passeth through all things no less than the air doth, if a man can but suck it in. Chapter 53. Wickedness, in general, doth not hurt the world, particular. Wickedness doth not hurt any other. Only unto him it is hurtful, whosoever he be that offends, unto whom in great favor and mercy it is granted, that whensoever he himself shall but first desire it, he may be presently delivered of it. Unto my free will, my neighbor's free will, whoever he be, as his life or his bode is altogether indifferent. For though we are all made one for another, yet have our minds and understandings, each of them, their own proper and limited jurisdiction. For else another man's wickedness might be my evil which God would not have, that it might not be in another man's power to make me unhappy, which nothing now can do but mine own wickedness. Liv. The sun seemeth to be shed abroad, and indeed it is diffused, but not effused. For that diffusion of it is a sea, or an extension. For therefore are the beams of it called manju from the word ju, for the re-ju, to be stretched out and extended. Now what a sunbeam is thou mayest know if thou observe the light of the sun, when through some narrow hole it pierceth into some room that is dark, for it is always in a direct line, and as by any solid body that it meets with in the way that is not penetrable by air, it is divided and abrupted, and yet neither slides off or falls down, but stayeth there nevertheless. Such must the diffusion in the mind be, not an effusion, but an extension. What obstacles and impediments soever she meeteth with in her way, she must not violently, and by way of an impetuous onset, light upon them, neither must she fall down, but she must stand, and give light unto that which doth admit of it. For as for that which doth not, it is its own fault and loss if it bereave itself of her light. Lv. He that feareth death either feareth that he shall have no sense at all, or that his senses will not be the same. Whereas he should rather comfort himself that either no sense at all, and so no sense of evil, or if any sense, then another life, and so no death properly. Lvi. All men are made one for another, either then teach them better, or bear with them. Lvii. The motion of the mind is not as the motion of a dart, for the mind, when it is wary and cauteless, and by way of diligent circumspection turneth herself many ways, may then as well be said to go straight on to the object, as when it useth no such circumspection. Chapter 58. To pierce and penetrate into the estate of everyone's, understanding that thou hast to do with, as also to make the estate of thine own open and penetrable to any other. The 9th book. He that is unjust is also impious. For the nature of the universe, having made all reasonable creatures one for another, to the end that they should do one another good, more or less according to the several persons and occasions, but in nowise hurt one another, it is manifest that he that doth transgress against this her will is guilty of impiety towards the most ancient and venerable of all the deities. For the nature of the universe is the nature the common parent of all, and therefore piously to be observed of all things that are, and that which now is, to whatsoever first was, and gave it its being, hath relation of blood and kindred. She is also called truth, and is the first cause of all truths. He therefore that willingly and wittingly doth lie is impious in that he doth receive, and so commit injustice. But he that against his will, in that he disagreeth from the nature of the universe, and in that striving with the nature of the world he doth in his particular, violate the general order of the world. For he doth no better than strive and war against it, who contrary to his own nature applieth himself to that which is contrary to truth. For nature had before furnished him with instincts and opportunities sufficient for the attainment of it, which he, having hitherto neglected, is not now able to discern that which is false from that which is true. He also that pursues after pleasures, as that which is truly good, and flies from pains, as that which is truly evil, is impious. For such a one must of necessity oftentimes accuse that common nature, as distributing many things both unto the evil and unto the good, not according to the deserts of either, as unto the bad oftentimes pleasures, and the causes of pleasures, so unto the good pains, and the occasions of pains. Again, he that feareth pains and crosses in this world, feareth some of those things which some time or other must needs happen in the world, and that we have already showed to be impious. And he that pursueth after pleasures will not spare to compass his desires, to do that which is unjust, and that is manifestly impious. Now those things which unto nature are equally indifferent, for she had not created both pain and pleasure, if both had not been unto her equally indifferent, they that will live according to nature must in those things, as being of the same mind and disposition that she is, be as equally indifferent. Whosoever therefore in either matter of pleasure and pain, death and life, honor and dishonor, which things nature in the administration of the world indifferently doth make use of, is not as indifferent, it is apparent that he is impious. When I say that common nature doth indifferently make use of them, my meaning is that they happen indifferently in the ordinary course of things, which by a necessary consequence, whether as principal or accessory, come to pass in the world, according to that first and ancient deliberation of Providence, by which she from some certain beginning did resolve upon the creation of such a world, conceiving then in her womb, as it were, some certain rational generative seeds and faculties of things, future, whether subjects, changes, successions, both such and just so many. 2. It were indeed more happy and comfortable for a man to depart out of this world, having lived all his life long clear from all falsehood, dissimulation, voluptuousness, and pride. But if this cannot be, yet it is some comfort for a man joyfully to depart as weary, and out of love with those, rather than to desire to live, and to continue long in those wicked courses. Hath not yet experience taught thee to fly from the plague? For a far greater plague is the corruption of the mind, than any certain change and distemper of the common air can be. This is a plague of creatures as they are living creatures, but that of men as they are men or reasonable.